The woman hit the water like a sack, not gently, not slowly. She was thrown without mercy. 1 second, she was a small body in the air, her brown Ankara wrapper flying wildly around, her grey hair whipping round her face. The next second, dark Lagos River swallowed her completely. With a loud splash that made the whole bridge shake, people screamed, cars jammed, the road above them. Horns blared, drivers stepped out and ran to the railings. Traders dropped their buckets in shock. A man's phone fell and cracked on the concrete. God help her. Somebody jump in now. But nobody moved. Nobody climbed down. Nobody even stepped close to the edge, again cautiously. Because the river looked hungry, black, deep, angry, and because the men who threw her in were still there. They stood near a parked car with its hazard lights blinking rhythmically. 3 men in dark clothes, with hard faces. They didn't look scared at all. They looked calm, like they had done this before. One leaned on the car door and watched the crowd intently, like he was counting heads. Another one smiled faintly. The third lifted his hand and pointed at the water like telling the river finish the job. The crowd froze. People kept shouting loudly, but it was the kind of shouting that never turns into action, the kind that stays far away. Then a voice cut through the noise, a low voice, a tired voice. Move out of the way. A man pushed through the crowd like he didn't care who was important or who was watching. His coat was ash-colored and torn at the elbows, soaked in old stains, mud, rain, maybe worse. A dirty bag hung on one shoulder, slapping his side as he walked, his hair overgrown and wild, his beard tangled like a bush. He looked like the kind of man people avoided on streets. But his eyes were sharp, like he had seen pain so many times fear no longer impressed him. Someone grabbed his arm. "Ogre, no, that water," he did, and even look back at the person. Another woman cried, "They will kill you, those men." He turned his head just once briefly, said something that sounded simple but landed heavy. "If I stand here and watch her die, I'm already dead." Then he climbed up the railings and jumped into the river below. The crowd screamed again, louder. This time his body cut into the river water, swallowed him too. For a moment there was only the river, only waves, only bubbles. People leaned forward anxiously. Some covered their mouths. One girl started crying hard, like she already knew what was coming. Seconds passed, 10, 20, 30. Someone whispered, "He is gone." Another said, "It has finished us." Then the water moved again. A head broke through the surface, then shoulders, then arms strong. Arms fighting the river like it was an enemy, and in those arms was the old woman. Madam Sandra. Her eyes were closed, her body limp, her hands hung like wet cloth loosely, her grey hair plastered across her face. The crowd erupted. Shouts turned into wild cheering loudly. People clapped without thinking. Some cried louder now from relief drivers on bridge, stood on car bonnets. To see better. "He got her. Ah, he got her. God bless you, hold on tightly." Jude kicked and pulled, dragging himself and Madame Sandra toward the riverbank below. Every time he lifted his head to breathe, water ran down his face like tears streaming. His coat clung to him like a heavy blanket. He finally reached slippery slab concrete near bank. His knees hit it hard. He coughed, gasping, still didn't drop her, shifted her body higher in his arms and started climbing, using his elbows, his knees, anything he could find. The crowd above leaned over the railings, shouting instructions that Jude couldn't even hear properly. "Turn her to the side, press her chest, bring rope, bring ladder down quickly." But nobody had rope, nobody had ladder, nobody had a plan. Only Jude had done something brave. Jude reached a point where he could stand on narrow ledge right below the road level. His shoes slipped. He held Madame Sandra tighter, looked up, just a little distance away. Their windows were tinted so dark you couldn't see inside. People stepped back cautiously. Some people started recording again, but their hands were shaking. The first SUV door opened. A security man stepped out, tall, wide, wearing black, an earpiece curled behind his ear. Then another security man, then another. They formed a tight line. The air felt different, heavier, like the bridge itself knew someone powerful had arrived. Then the door of the biggest SUV opened, and a man stepped out. He was young, not too young, but not old, early 40s maybe. Dark-skinned, clean-shaven, his clothes were simple but expensive, a crisp white shirt, dark trousers, shoes that looked like they cost more than a small car. But it wasn't his outfit that made people step back. It was his face, his eyes frantic, panicked, like a son. In his arms, the man's mouth opened, his breath caught, then he ran, not his guards, not his drivers, not his assistants, him. He pushed past the security line and sprinted. To the edge of the bridge, people tried to move out of his way, stumbling, shocked. "Sir, sir, wait," a guard shouted, but the man didn't stop. He dropped to his knees at the railing and stared down, his eyes filling with tears so fast it looked like rain. "Mom," he whispered. The crowd gasped. The word spread like fire. "That woman is his mother." The man stood up and started climbing down the side path that led toward the lower bank, moving so fast his shoe almost slipped. Then someone finally said his name out loud, like it was too huge to be real. Sam Andrew. Another voice answered, trembling. "The CEO, Sam Tech." People's eyes widened. More Sam Andrew, billionaire CEO, on this dirty bridge in the middle of this chaos. For that old woman. Sam reached the lower bank and rushed straight to Jude. His hands shook as he looked at Madame Sandra's face, her closed eyes, her wet hair stuck to her cheek. Sam's voice broke. "Who did this to her?" Jude tried to speak, but his throat was tight. All he could do was shake his head and adjust Madame Sandra in his arms so she would unslip. Sam looked at Jude, then really looked. He saw the torn ash coat, the muddy bag, the water dripping off Jude's beard. Then Sam's eyes softened in a way that surprised everyone watching. He grabbed Jude's shoulder, like Jude was the only solid thing in the world. "Thank you," Sam said, and tears spilled down his face. "Thank you for saving my mother." Jude blinked for a second, thought he misheard, because rich men like this. Did you talk to men like him? Did you touch them? Did you cry in front of strangers? But Sam Andrew was crying, and he was holding Jude's shoulder. Then Sam turned to his guards, and finally gave an order, sharp, urgent. "Bring the car down as close as possible now." The guards moved instantly. Sam turned back to Jude. His voice was gentle now, but fierce with urgency. "Give her to me." Jude tightened his grip without meaning to, like the river was still trying to take her. "I don't think she's breathing well," Jude managed to say, his voice rough. "We need a doctor fast." Sam nodded fast. "We're going to Lagos Medical Center right now." Sam carefully lifted Madame Sandra from Jude's arms. The moment Madame Sandra left Jude's body, Jude swayed like a tree that had been holding weight for too long. His legs shook, his lips were turning pale, but he forced himself to stand straight, watching Sam like watching a dream. Sam started climbing up with his mother in his arms, struggling but refusing help. Guards reached out to support him, but he snapped, "Leave me." He carried her himself. The crowd cleared a path like Moses' sea. Phones recorded, mouths stayed open. Some people cried. Again Jude followed behind, taking shaky steps. When they reached the road, Sam didn't even look at Jude's dripping clothes or the smell of river water. He turned and pointed at Jude like it was the most normal thing in the world. "You," Sam said, breathing hard. "Come with me now." One of the guards frowned. "Sir, Sam's head whipped, his eyes flashed. "I said he is coming." The guard shut up instantly. Jude froze, pointed at himself. "Me." Sam nodded. "Yes, you." Jude stared at the shiny black SUV door as it opened, stared at the clean leather seats, looked down at his soaked coat and muddy shoes. People around whispered, "Will he enter like that? This life?" Jude hesitated just 1 second. Then he stepped forward and climbed into the Billionaire SUV. The door shut behind him with a soft thunk. That sounded like a final decision. The convoy engines roared, and as they pulled away at speed toward the hospital, Jude looked through the tinted window back at the river that almost stole Madame Sandra, the river that almost stole him too. His hands were still shaking, his heart was still pounding. The biggest question in his mind was not even will she survive. It was this: why would a billionaire's mother be thrown into a river like she was nothing? Because Jude had seen the men's faces, and something told him this was not an accident. As the convoy sped through Lagos traffic sirens, screaming, Sam sat beside his unconscious mother, holding her hand, whispering, "Please, Mummy, please." Then Sam turned suddenly and looked straight at Jude. Inside the black SUV, the air felt tight, like there wasn't enough space for fear, hope, and breath to exist together. Madame Sandra lay across the back seat, her head resting on Sam's lap. Her face was pale, her lips were slightly open. Every shallow rise of her chest felt like a fragile promise that could break at any second. Sam held her hand with both of his, pressing it against his chest as if he could push life back into her by force. "Stay with me, Mum," he whispered again and again. "Please, just stay." Jude sat opposite them, his wet clothes sticking to his skin. River water dripped from the hem of his tattered ash coat onto the expensive carpet of the SUV. He didn't notice his eyes were locked on Madame Sandra's face, watching her chest like a child counting seconds. He had pulled people from water before he knew this look. It was the look of someone standing on the thin line between here and gone. The driver shouted from the front, "Sir, Lagos Medical Center in 2 minutes." Sam leaned forward. "Call ahead. Tell them my mother is coming. Tell them it's critical." One of the guards spoke quickly into his phone. Jude swallowed hard, his throat burned from river water and fear. The river came back, cold hands, dark water, the heavy drag of another body. He opened his eyes fast. Not now, he told himself. The SUV screeched into the hospital compound. Security gates flew open before the car even stopped. Doctors and nurses rushed forward with a stretcher. "Sir, her neck pulse is weak. Prepare emergency room now." Sam jumped out before the car fully stopped, lifting his mother again, like she weighed nothing. Jude followed, stumbling slightly, as his legs protested. They rushed through the sliding hospital doors. People turned and stared. Some recognized Sam Andrew instantly. Others didn't. But they could tell this was important. Doctors took Madame Sandra from Sam's arms. "No," Sam protested, half a second, fear flaring. "We need to work, sir," the doctor said firmly, but respectfully. "You can't. Come inside." Sam froze, hands empty now. Shaking, the doors slammed shut. Just like that, Madame Sandra disappeared behind white walls. Silence hit, the kind of silence that roars. Sam stood there staring at the closed doors. His chest rose and fell too fast, his jaw clenched so tight a muscle jumped. Jude stood a few steps behind, unsure where he belonged. A nurse approached with a towel. "Sir, you re-soaked, please." Sam waved her away without looking. "Not now then." Slowly he turned and looked at Jude. Really looked, from the tangled beard to the tired eyes too. The torn coat clinging to his thin frame. Sam took a step closer. "What's your name?" he asked quietly. "Jude." Jude replied. His voice came out rough. "Jude A. Sam nodded once, like he was carving the name into stone. "You didn't hesitate," Sam said. "You didn't even ask who she was." Jude shrugged slightly. "She was drowning." Sam stared at him like that answer shook something deep inside. Most people had reasons. Jude had only truth. A guard cleared his throat. "Sir, should we?" Sam lifted his hand, stopping him. "No," he said firmly. "He stays." Jude blinked. "Sir, I can." Sam shook his head. "You not leaving." They moved to the waiting area. Sam dropped into a chair, elbows on knees, head in his hands. Jude sat opposite, dripping quietly onto the floor. Minutes passed, then more. Every time the doors moved, Sam's head snapped up. Every time they stayed shut, fear grew heavier. Most people had reasons. Jude had only truth. A guard cleared his throat. "Sir, should we?" Sam lifted his hand, stopping him. "No," he said firmly. "He stays." Jude blinked. "Sir, I can." Sam shook his head. "You're not leaving." They moved to the waiting area. Sam dropped into a chair, elbows on knees, head in his hands. Jude sat opposite, dripping quietly onto the floor. Minutes passed, then more. Every time the doors moved, Sam's head snapped up. Every time they stayed shut, fear grew heavier. Finally, a doctor stepped out. Sam was on his feet instantly. "Doctor." The doctor removed his mask slowly. His face was serious. "She's alive," he said. Sam's knees almost gave way, grabbed the back of a chair. But the doctor continued. "She inhaled a lot of water. Her lungs are struggling. She also has a head injury. The next few hours are very critical." The doctor sighed. 1 minute, that's all." Inside the ICU, machines beeped softly. Tubes ran from Madame Sandra's nose and arms. Her chest rose with the help of a machine. Jude stood frozen at the foot of the bed. She looked smaller, weaker, nothing like the strong old woman who had fought the river, even unconscious. Sam moved to her side, holding her hand gently. "Mom," he whispered, "I am here." Jude watched from a distance, heart heavy. This was the end point of bravery, sometimes standing helpless after doing all you could. They were ushered out quickly, back in the waiting area. Sam finally spoke again. "You homeless," he said, not as an insult but as a fact. Jude nodded. "Yes." "You swim like someone trained." Sam continued. Jude looked down at his hands. I used to. Sam waited. The silence stretched. Jude exhaled slowly. I was a swimmer, national level 2-time champion. Sam's head snapped up. What? Jude didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was quiet.